Welcome, Cougars, to the BYU Foods Lab. We're going to go through a few things. For the first few labs, you're going to familiarize yourself with the kitchens. So the first thing that you need to look for is on the back of your kitchen cupboard, you will find a list that tells everything that you need to do when you clean up. Make sure that you read this at the beginning of lab so that you know what you need to do throughout the lab. We're going to talk about some equipment. This equipment is all found in the kitchen cupboard right above your sink. So right above your sink, that belongs to your kitchen. This is called a box grater. And a box grater has different sides. This is the blade, this is a small grater, this is a zester, and this is a large grater. I would use the blade on this side for just a small job. If I'm going to do something like just a portion of an onion, I might use that, and I wouldn't get out any other piece of equipment. This box grater has some features that are kind of nice. This has a rubber gasket on the bottom that makes it nice when you go to work with it. It holds it steady and in place. It also has a storage container that you can put underneath the box grater and then grate whatever you want to right into there and then close it and use that for storage. This is not my favorite feature on a box grater. I prefer a zester, and this is a zester well worth your investment. Put it on the list of gifts that people can give you because it's amazing. This works well for lemon zest, orange zest, grating nutmeg, grating ginger. It's very fine and it does a really, really good job. When you work with the grater, if you want it to stay sharp, don't put it in your dishwasher. Just use it and wash it immediately. Inside the food processor, you have some choices as far as what goes in there. The discs that come with a food processor, usually there's a blade, and usually there's some kind of a grater, and then depending on how much you want to spend, there are all kinds of other discs. There's also a knife blade that goes into the food processor. It's super sharp, so make sure that when you use this, you put it in the sharps basket before washing. To put the lid on the food processor, you also need to make sure that everything lines up. It will not turn on unless everything is safely locked into place, and then it will turn on for operation. You'll also find a mini food chopper in your kitchen. It is designed to just do limited things. It has a blade on the inside that works really well for chopping a bunch of nuts, or if you wanted to do 5 to 10 cloves of garlic, it would work well for that. We have a mini hand chopper in the kitchens as well. When you shop for one of these, they are not all created equal. You want to look for one that when you push down on the top, the blades rotate. Many of the ones out there just go straight down in the same place, and that doesn't work very well for chopping. So this one, each time I push down, the blades rotate and it chops in a different place. It also has a little rubber gasket here that you can put about a half a cup of something in there and then just use it and chop here, or you can put it on your cutting board and move it around to do chopping. What you also want to look for with a hand chopper is that it comes apart easily so that you'll be able to clean all up inside of here. Many of the ones out there don't do this, and you end up with mold and bits of food up in there that's rotting. When you go to put it together at the end, make sure that you put all the pieces back together and then put it back in the cupboard, but don't put the rubber gasket back on the end because it doesn't allow for that last bit of moisture to evaporate and we get mold inside. But do store it like this so that the two parts are together. In your kitchens, you also have a jelly roll pan and a cookie sheet or baking sheet, it's sometimes called. The jelly roll pan has a 1-inch side all the way around the outside edge, works great for cookies and for cakes. The cookie sheet or baking sheet works great for cookies, but obviously not for cakes. You also will have in your kitchen some muffin tins. This is a mini muffin tin, and this won't be found in your kitchen, but I wanted to explain to you when you do use the non-stick cooking spray, make sure that you put it inside of the sink to spray so that overspray doesn't get all over your kitchen. And then after you've sprayed it with the non-stick cooking spray, take a paper towel and wipe the top off, and that will keep the top from browning and the muffin tin will stay shiny longer. You want to shop for shiny muffin tins and shiny cookie sheets and jelly roll pans, because dark ones will attract the heat and cause overly browned bottoms and overly browned sides. Keep them nice and clean in your kitchens, and then you'll maintain that shininess that works well for making cookies and muffins. When you are working with bakeware, parchment paper works super well for making a non-stick surface. Parchment paper is actually paper infused with Teflon. It's not the same as wax paper. In your kitchens, you also have a muffin scoop or ice cream scoop and a cookie scoop. This works really well for making sure that the muffins are all the same size. This works well for making sure that the cookies are all the same size. With the cookies, if you scoop it in and press down, especially on the ginger snaps, they'll all be the exact same size. In your kitchens, you also have a sieve and a colander. You need to know the difference. This is a sieve. It has a wire mesh. Works great for straining off things that you need to have all of the liquid strained off. This is a colander, and the colander works for things like noodles or big chunks of food that you need to strain things off. In our kitchens, you cannot put any things down the sink. So if you have some soup, for example, that you need to throw away, you could strain it in the colander, let the juice go down the sink, and then pour the chunks into the garbage can. When you come into lab each week, what you need to do is sit down and fill out your lab evaluation form. The lab evaluation form needs to be filled out all the way on the top with your group. You'll sit down, fill that out at the top, make sure that you note the unit duty, and your unit duty each week is posted on the bulletin board that is over by the coat racks. Make sure that all of this is filled out. You'll fill out the bottom part when you finish cooking. Also, make sure that you read your recipe out loud together before you begin cooking. This makes it so that you don't have any errors in your recipes. And you will also make sure that you do your time management plan. The time management plan ensures that you'll finish on time. We have a 2-hour cook time, and at the end of that 2 hours, you need to have cleaned, dried, and put away all of the equipment and tools that you've used. You also need to have your product turn out perfectly, and it needs to be ready to serve. Your table will be set with all of the dishes, and your sink will have brand new clean water in it that you're going to use for cleaning the dishes that are on your table that you eat from. Across the top here, you'll have the name of each person in your kitchen. The objective here is not to rewrite the recipe. The objective is to have a time management plan where steps are minimized and you work as a team. For example, if you're doing soup, salad, and muffins, and each of those recipes has chopped onions in them, then what you'll want to do is have one person chop the onions for all, and that would be on your time management plan. When you go to the cart to get the refrigerated items, you send one person to get all of the ingredients. You might even want to write those ingredients somewhere on this paper so that that person knows exactly what they're going to get off of the refrigerator cart. In your lab, you also need to make sure that you set it up correctly for the next group. When you're all through cooking, you're going to have you'll have used a dishcloth and 3 dish towels. When it's time to check out, you'll get a TA. You'll open all the doors and drawers and cupboards. You'll have them come and check your kitchen out. You will hold on to the dirty towels and dishcloth that you have until they've checked you out. That's so that if there's anything that they think you need to go ahead and clean a little bit more, you can use the towels that you already have to do that job. And then after they've checked you out, that's when you go over to the cupboard that's by the coat racks, and you'll get clean dishcloths and clean dish towels. 3 towels and 1 cloth for the next group. If you have any major spills in your kitchen, you will need to use a rag from the rag bucket. And the reason is that these have to be sanitized. These can be used on the floor. They can also be used whenever you use a bleach solution so that you don't discolor our towels. You also have a basket that is by the taps, and in this basket you're going to have your dishwashing soap, you're going to have a brush, you're going to have a sponge, and you're going to have the stopper. When you're through cleaning, all of this needs to be cleaned and dried. The best way to clean this or to dry this sponge is to put it in one of the towels and squeeze it out, make sure that all of the water is out before you put it in the dry basket. You're going to use a towel to dry this out. To clean and dry the brush after you've rinsed it really well and got all the food particles out, pound it really hard on the edge of your sink and make sure that everything gets out of it before you put it in here. The stopper needs to be dried and put in here. Make sure you dry underneath the basket and then place that at the top of your sink and faucets. When you come to lab, you need to have your whole kitchen group come over to the oven and figure out how it works. Our ovens have an oven that has a convection oven setting, and that means that there's a big fan in the back of one of these ovens. And the big fan will distribute the air so that the heat is distributed evenly, and that works when you have 2 cookie sheets and you put them in at once, or 2 muffin pans and you put them in at once. Other than that, you can just use the regular oven setting and just set it on that for regular cooking. So look in the oven, figure out which one is the convection oven setting. Another thing that you need to check is make sure that the oven racks are in the right place for the food item that you're cooking. If it's a big loaf of bread, I would need to lower this oven rack so that the center of the food product is in the center of the oven, and adjust those racks accordingly. If you have it on convection bake, it doesn't matter because that air is going to circulate. Now the settings for the oven are up here, and you need to select which one you need for the oven that you're using. If I am going to use the convection oven, in this particular oven, it's the upper oven. So first I would select upper oven, then I would select convection, and then I would set my temperature. And then I would hit start. There's a little fan feature that shows up, and that fan feature tells you that the oven is set on convection bake. If I don't want it on convection bake, I can use that same oven for just regular bake. I would turn it on the upper oven, and then I would set it on bake, and then the temperature, and that upper oven would work for that. If we're going to use broil, we would select the oven that we want to broil in. Either the upper oven or the lower oven has the broil feature, then broil, and then I can make it either go high or low depending on how I select it. If you have a piece of meat that's very thick, you would want it farther away from that upper heating element, and you would want it on the low broil. If it's something very small and you just want to brown it quickly, you could have it on high broil and you could put it close to that heating element. So that's how the broiler works. For regular baking, you can use either oven. When you come to lab, you need to look in the oven, and if there are any crumbs in the oven, you wipe them out before you begin to cook, because if there's anything in there that's spilled, it's going to be too hot at the end of lab for your group to wipe it out. The cooktop is a flat glass cooktop in most of the kitchens. If you spill anything on the cooktop, you want to scrape it off quickly. We have a flat spatula that works well for that. You can do that while it's still hot. And then when it begins to cool, you'll want to wipe it off as soon as you can. If there are any stains, then you can go to the dispensary and get a razor blade, and under your sink is a ceramic cooktop cleaning agent that you'd squirt on, rub it around, and then scrape anything that you've spilled on off of there. You need to make sure that you don't ever set anything on the cooktop. It remains hot. We had a student one time put a 9x13 glass pan, just set it on top of the cooktop. It was hot and it literally exploded. So we don't want that to happen. The microwave. Microwaves work by bursting microwaves into the microwave oven, and they do it at intervals. If you just turn it on, it shoots in those microwaves all the time. If you select 50% power, then that means that it doesn't lower the microwaves at all. It just shoots the microwaves in at 50% of the time. So it will turn them into the oven, and then it will be off for a while, then into the oven, and then off. And to set that, you would set your cook time first. Say we were doing 4 minutes. Then I would select the power level, and then if I had 50%, I would select the 5 and then start. And that would mean that it would cook for the selected time at 50% power. Most of the time, we just cook at full power.